My first question is regarding Together. So you're the co-founder of Together with Jason Palmer. How did this partnership happen, and why did you guys decide to start this organization?
Well, it's great to be live with you here from the DNC. I'm actually live here in the convention hall in Chicago and just running from interview to interview and Zoom to Zoom, talking to a lot of notables. Terry McAuliffe, governor of Virginia and former DNC chair, was just in the chair before me, and talking with Tavi Smiley, now talking with you guys. And Together is about bottling some of that Gen Z energy. This whole platform is really focused on Gen Z voter engagement through the causes and cause champion activities that they care about. So Gen Z doesn't identify themselves on a political level like Democrat, Republican, Independent, etc. They really identify themselves through what I call a cause lens. So they'll say, I'm pro environmentalism, or I am anti gun violence, or I am pro women's rights. And then you find that cause, you amplify it, build a platform to help them fund it and organize around it. And then you have something special. And that's what we're really trying to do at the Together PAC. It's about turning down the noise on the right, about turning down the noise on the left, and really building a stronger middle. And that's really the mission of building what I call purple power, not red, not blue, but purple power around the Gen Z vote.
Okay, and that kind of leads me into my next question. So I know that the young vote is important, but in your words, why should young voters be engaged in this upcoming election?
I think all the causes that they care about are on the ballot. Environmentalism is on the ballot. We talk about climate change and climate change action. And, one candidate is pushing a totally different agenda than the other. We're a nonpartisan organization, but people can read the facts for themselves. So I think if you have a concern like climate change, then you can vote accordingly and show up and be part of that margin of difference makers to go for it. Gun violence is on the ballot. You talk
Mhm.
about the Office of Gun Violence that was created under Vice President Harris and Joe Biden, and you see how Congress people like Maxwell Frost, who's prime Gen Z, the youngest Congressperson in the nation from Florida. He is a prime example of the voters we're trying to activate into cause champions and actually run for office. We're funding candidates. We funded 10 candidates and endorsed them to run for office all around the nation, all up and down the ballot. And so we're trying to create more and more Maxwell Crosses, but every issue that Gen Z cares about, for the most part, is on the ballot. If you think about women's rights and reproductive rights, that's on the ballot. And so some people have actually put it on the ballot in terms of a voting amendment for the election. But then overall, on a national level, we also know at the Supreme Court level that women's rights and reproductive rights are also on the ballot. So every cause that they care about is on the ballot. I encourage them to show up and show out and get activated and make sure that they're in touch with one another to fund those causes through our great platform at togetherpurple.org.
Okay, great. And I know you're hosting a breakfast with Gen Z tomorrow morning. What do you hope to accomplish during the breakfast?
During that breakfast, we want to make sure that we kind of, have a chance to kind of put names to faces, right? Introduce people, build relationships, do, IRL work, as we all know from Gen Z in real life. We want to make sure people are meeting each other, connecting, building relationships, and then figuring out ways that they can support one another from a funding standpoint, an organization standpoint, and just understand that there are more people in your camp than there are outside of it, right? You might meet somebody who also is going to be focused on environmentalism, or you might meet somebody who's also going to be focused on racial justice. We want to find those causes, we want to find those relationships, and at those breakfasts, we want to make those connections.
Okay. And I know that one of your goals is to register 1 million voters by election day. How many voters have you guys registered so far?
So far, we're partnering with great organizations like vote.org. We've actually reached out to More Than a Vote, which is LeBron James' organization, as well as When We All Vote, which is Michelle Obama's organization. So we're really focused on connecting with the folks who are doing that field work and then engaging and funding those folks appropriately. So at this point, it's probably in the low thousands, but we're looking to get closer to 1 million by election day. So making sure that we have those partnerships with the folks who are in the field doing that work so that we're not reinventing the wheel, but it's about funding, organizing, and connecting with those people to make sure we're amplifying their work.
Hmm. Yeah, because voting is, I mean, especially getting the young vote out is extremely important. So I hope you guys reach that $1 million threshold. or three
Yeah, no,
million voters threshold.
million voters. Yeah. And it's going to make a difference because we all know that this election is going to come down to 7 key swing states and around 500,000 votes. I'll even tell you in my home state of North Carolina, former President Trump won North Carolina by less than 75,000 votes. And there are over 10 million people in North Carolina. So you think about the number of voters on a state by state level in the key swing states that are going to make a difference. Collectively, we're talking about 500,000 votes. So if we can get an additional million folks registered, you're definitely going to see an impact in those key swing states like Pennsylvania, like Wisconsin, like Georgia.
Well, I hope you guys come here to Texas because that's where I'm located. So we need to get as many people registered to vote as possible.
Well, we're big fans of Beto, and all the work that he's doing and getting folks registered. And I think that, like people say, that Texas eventually is going to swing purple. I mean, you look at the demographic growth in Houston, you look at the demographic growth in San Antonio, you look at it in Dallas, and I think that eventually that, Texas is going to swing purple. It's just a matter of time. And I know people have been saying it for election after election, but I think you guys got about another 4 to 8 years, and it's definitely going to swing purple. It's not going to be a red state. It's not going to be a blue state. It's going to be a together state, which is a purple state, right? It's like build it. We're all about building that strong middle, and we're hopeful for Texas as well.
Okay. And then I know that, Together is a nonpartisan organization. And so you guys, one of the things that you do is that you support young congressional candidates on both sides of the aisle. Would there ever be a conflict of interest? Say, for example, if there was a young Republican and a young Democrat going for the same Senate seat, for example, would you guys be equally supporting them, or how would that work?
Yeah, I think where we look for our candidates, we go through, a little bit of a checklist, right? We're making sure that they're advocating for causes that Gen Z cares about. We're not telling people what to care about. We're talking to people in the field. We're doing our research. We're working with our partnership organizations. We have a youth advisory council that has Gen Z members on it that gives us kind of the insight in terms of what's out there in the field and what's relevant. And that's how we choose the candidates that we support. We're making sure that those folks are fair-minded. We're making sure that they have a focus on civility. We're all about civility in politics and bringing back productive dialogue, that you can disagree with people without being disagreeable. And so we're trying to make sure we amplify that type of dialogue and that type of consensus building and that type of diplomacy, but all through the lens of the causes that Gen Z cares about. So if there's a Republican that's doing that, we're all for them. If there's a Democrat that's doing that, we're all for them. If there's an independent that's doing that, we're all for them. So it's not so much about choosing sides as it is about really the content of the character of the individual that's running, and then the ideals and causes that's supporting around it. So that's where we're very nonpartisan in that regard.
Okay. And you're at the DNC now. And is this your first time there? Have you been to the DNC every 4 years?
I'm a DNC old head. It's funny.
Okay.
It's like I said, I'm here in this arena and I'm excited, but I've actually been coming to the DNC since '04. In '04, I was a convention speaker actually for the North Carolina delegation, my home state, when John Kerry ran for president and Barack Obama delivered his famous intro speech to the world. And so that was very exciting in Boston in '04. And then I went on to Philadelphia. I did some media and engagement work there at the Philadelphia convention. And then one of the best ones so far has been my home city of Charlotte, North Carolina. When the convention was there, that was just a blast. I was hanging out with the Black Eyed Peas and doing all kinds of fundraising and meeting great folks in the North Carolina delegation and beyond at the DNC. So this is my fourth DNC. I'm excited about being here. I'm already meeting some great faces. I mentioned the former DNC chair was just in the hallway, and I was talking with him, Terry McAuliffe, and a few other folks like Tavis Smiley and other notables. So it's a lot of energy at this DNC, and it definitely is taking it up a level now that there's been a pivot to, obviously VP Harris and her nomination.
And speaking of her, she's going to be having her acceptance speech later this week. What are you expecting to hear from the acceptance speech?
Well, I'm thinking she's gonna have to show up and show out. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. It's like this is her moment to step into the light. Like Eminem said, you got one shot. You got to come out. Both barrels blazing, and basically tell America who you are, why you want their vote, and how you're going to inspire and lead them as a nation. And I think that's the call to duty that Vice President Harris has, and I'm looking forward to hearing her message. I'm looking forward to hopefully, hearing something very inspirational and being able to kind of bottle this energy and amplify it that you feel here in Chicago and across the Democratic Party. So it's an exciting time to be in Chicago. It's an exciting time to be involved with the political process.
I think she's going to do just that. I think
I hope
she's going
so.
to. I think it's going to
You
be.
got to bring the funk.
Yeah,
This is not
yeah.
amateur hour. This is the time to like really come and bring a message and let people get to know you on a personal basis. Talk about the cooking that she does. Talk about that as a passion. Talk about growing up with a Jamaican father with an accent. Talk about,
Yeah,
an
yeah.
Indian mother with an accent. Be who you are. And I think that's what people love about her, and show how being who she is connects with everyday people. I didn't know that her first job was working at McDonald's, because my first job was working at McDonald's. So it's like
Mhm.
everyone can relate to that in some way, whether they were a waiter or a server or worked at fast food. And somehow it's like the more relatable everyday hooks that she can tell from her personal life, I think people then can have connection points where they can understand and inspire her story. And then she pivots to, here's my vision for the future. Here's why I want to be a leader. Here's how I'm going to make change happen. And I think that from a policy perspective and kind of bringing it down to the everyday level is really important in her messaging.
Definitely. I think authenticity, it will be important this week, and I think she'll bring her A game.
1000%.
Yeah. I think
1000%. Authenticity is her currency. And the more people try to, make her lean away from that and be something that's artificial, or stop laughing or stop being yourselves, that's not what I think people want now. And I think that particularly Gen Z voters are focused on, you showing up as you, right? Like you show
Mhm.
up as your best self, you show up in your true and authentic skin, and you speak your truth, and you talk your talk, and you walk your walk, and let the voters decide thereafter. So I'm hopefully she'll do that, and it'll be an exciting time.
And I saw where in another interview that Tim Walz was your third pick for VP.
You did
How
see
did you
that.
feel when Mark Kelly, because I know Mark Kelly was your number one. How did you feel when
Yep.
Tim Walz, got the top spot?
I think I was over analyzing. I'll be honest. I was trying to play, Mr. Perfectionist, and I said in an interview, because it was Olympic theme, and we were right in the course of the Olympics, and I basically said, okay, I'm going to give my gold medal to Mark Kelly. I'm going to give my silver medal to Governor Josh Shapiro, and I'm going to give my bronze medal to Tim Walz. And so Tim Walz at that point was just a little bit too unknown, and I felt like he's in the mix, but he wasn't a strong candidate at that point. But
Mhm.
look, I was proven wrong, and I think that Gen Z had probably better insight to Tim Walz than I did. I mean, you look at folks like David Hogg, who came out very early and endorsed his candidacy and talked about, how that Tim Walz was giving them that kind of like Bernie Sanders feeling, and the coach from my high school, and the guy who could help me fix my car, and reminding people of kind of that great noble father figure for a lot of folks in Gen Z. And I think that that's something that I might have missed as an analyst. Like I said, overanalyzing it and thinking more tactically about what Mark Kelly could bring to the table, or Josh Shapiro bring in Pennsylvania, et cetera. But I think how it's all shaken out has been great, and I think there hasn't been a better 4-week run in a campaign, I think in history almost. And so we'll see how it all shakes out come November. We maintain that energy.
Yeah, I think he was a great pick. I think, speaking of authenticity, I mean, I feel like he's really connecting with people because he was a coach and just because of his background being in the military and all of that. So I just think that the authenticity piece was really good and it's
Yeah,
connected to people.
going back to that authenticity, and also thinking about, you can always tell when someone's comfortable in their skin. You just can. And he and both Vice President Harris, they exude that, and that comfort in their skin allows other people to have comfort in their skin. And so it's like you give off that energy, and you give that energy to other people, and then everyone's able to show up in an authentic light and bring their best selves to the table.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that was it for me, Kwame. So I appreciate your time. I see that there's some people behind you. So you have fun tonight and this week and just enjoy yourself.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate the time, and definitely, folks, visit togetherpurple.org and make sure you give us a donation. I always say no money, no movement. We want to make sure we continue funding these great causes for Gen Z, and that we're going to organize them and build the cause champions that will be leaders for tomorrow. So thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting Together.